Hi everyone, welcome to the Love to Live Healthy show. I'm Josephine Fitzpatrick, author of Cheat Day Rules, available on Amazon. I'm a weight loss nutrition specialist for over 15 years, and I work with thousands of clients all over the world. I own Innovation Healthy Market in Woodbury, where for the last 12 years we sell hundreds of prepared meals and snacks. We are open to the public 7 days a week. You do not have to be a client to shop in our store. We have customers from all over Long Island visit our store every day, and we ship tri-state. We also offer free Long Island delivery every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we hand deliver to New York City every Tuesday. We are also on Uber Eats 7 days a week. So if you're looking to lose weight or just eat healthy, come and visit our store. Everything is made fresh daily, and we carry everything from high protein, low carb, gluten-free, sugar-free, plant-based, vegan, keto, and our famous detox. Someone is always available to help you at the store. For more information on our store, deliveries, shopping, and weight loss, visit our website, innovationhealthymarket.com, or check out our Instagram at Innovation Weight Loss. Today I'm here with Jake Fitzpatrick. Good morning, Jake.
Good morning.
And today's topic is the big question that I get all the time. Does muscle weigh more than fat?
So it's so interesting because immediately nobody ever believes us, but but you know, it's the old saying, like, what weighs more? You know, what was it? A pound of bricks and then a pound of feathers. Mm-hmm. Everything is a pound. So right. It might look different, you know, but that's the whole key to it, because a pound of feathers may look different than a pound of bricks. You might only have one brick, and then
right,
you might have
exactly,
500,000 feathers. So one looks a lot bigger than the other, but that doesn't mean that they weigh any different. Mm-hmm. And that's the key when talking about this, because to translate it into health and nutrition, while 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat weigh the same, they can look quite different and have different health effects as well. Mm-hmm. 5 pounds of muscle is going to affect the human body way differently than 5 pounds of fat would. And then muscle is not only factored into your BMI, which people might not know, but it's body mass index. That's the complete scan of your body, how much fat, how much muscle is on it, as well as, you know, bone density, as well as all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. But when it's factored in, you know, the key thing that we need to remember here is not all pounds are created equal.
That's right. Exactly.
I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, it's a great way to remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, think about it. Fat, there's so much, it's a larger volume. And just like you said before, you'll have, 1,000 feathers to one brick. Think of that in fat, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have a lot more fat compared to the muscle.
Yeah.
So not only, yes, it weighs the same, but the look is extremely different.
Yep.
Not to mention, like what you said, what the body does. Like, obviously fat is for stored. It's really for your body to live off of, that's why they call it stored fat. Mm-hmm. Muscle, you're burning calories even at rest.
Yep.
And that's the big difference in this, other than the look, So when you say, well, am I this weight because I'm all muscle? Well, if you're all muscle, that's great. Then that's your weight. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we get confused, and we think because our body has muscle on it, that's why our weight's higher. But that's not the case.
Yep. And the one thing that you just said that I want to, not to cut you off.
No, please.
The one thing that you just said that I want to touch on, because we hear it so frequently, everyone has the same fear of the number. Mm-hmm. Everybody, I even meet some people throughout the day that don't even want to go near a scale. They don't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But people don't realize, like I said, not all pounds are created equal. In fact, you should overcome that fear, because that number is not what you may think it is. Mm-mm. In fact, your total body weight, of course, but sometimes your total body weight is never a clear indicator of how you look or the health risks that you may face. Mm-hmm. Because you can be the number that you want. You can be 110 pounds, but what good is 110 pounds of fat?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I call it skinny fat.
Exactly.
So
I'm saying, like, you should not be concerned with the number on the scale in front of you. You should be concerned more with body composition, because you can be a healthier 150 rather than 110. You know,
Yes.
you can be a healthier 150 and have actual pounds of muscle on you. And, you know, you can look skinnier than somebody that's 110 pounds. It's just, you know.
Very true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just that one fear that most people have of, you know, actually stepping on the scale, that number doesn't mean everything.
Right.
You know, because you look at yourself in the mirror and you think what you see is what you are. Meanwhile, you think the number is going to be like, you know, your worst nightmare. But two different people who weigh the same amount can look very different when
yes.
one has a high percentage of fat and the other has a high percentage of muscle.
Mhm. They could be half their size.
Yeah.
So, and I do say that all the time, you know, I will have two people in my office and they are literally same height, same weight, same age. One is, you know, 80% muscle, one is 80% fat. And let me tell you, not only they could weigh the exact same, one is half the size.
Yep. Yeah.
And that, you know, this is the thing. You can be the number you want to be, but you're either going to be it and you're going to be majority muscle, less fat.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be all fat, no muscle, or you're going to be half and half, you know? And honestly, for you to be like 90, like that's why they say the body fat percentage, I believe, was like 19 to 28 for a woman, and I feel like the men wasn't even that different. Wait, I think I wrote it down.
Well, women do carry more fat, right?
Yes, but that's why I was kind of shocked that I thought I thought men would be even less body fat. I mean, less body fat because they carry more muscle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it really isn't. I have to find it now.
Well, it's funny while you're doing that. It's funny because we touched on before, like the 1 pound of bricks versus the 1 pound of feathers. You know, 1 pound of bricks could be one brick in general. The 1 pound of feathers can look like a lot. And, you know, if you take that in consideration with, you know, an extra 20 pounds of fat may give you a very softer, less toned appearance. An extra 20 pounds of muscle will make you look very firm and sculpted.
Right.
You know, so at the same time, you know, that one brick looks very toned and sculpted.
Yeah, right.
But that 1 pound of feathers looks very fluffy. You know? So, I mean, if you want to think about it like that, it's very easy to just say. But then again, like we also, you know more about it than I do, but, you know, muscle also serves a very different function.
Yes.
You know, because you don't have that much, you know, the size of a muscle in the body is very small compared to the amount of
dense.
fat. It's dense. It's like, you know.
It's much smaller.
But the fat helps insulate the body and trap in heat.
Mm-hmm.
The muscle helps boost your metabolism.
Right.
This means that the more muscle that you have, the more calories you burn when you're at rest, like you said before. But also, it's been found that people with a higher percentage of body fat have a higher overall death rate.
Yes, because
it
it causes
low,
inflammation. Yeah.
Have a very overall death rate, like we talked about before. You know, inflammation in general. The higher the inflammation is in your body, the higher that your risk of getting any sort of
Cancer,
illness related to it is also increased.
Diabetes,
You know, fat increases
arthritis.
your chances for developing conditions like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, anything that's cardiovascular, where, you know, your heart by itself is a muscle. You know, people don't realize that your heart is a muscle. So when you completely congest it in fat, it's not going to work the best way it could. You know, you want to exercise that muscle first and foremost and treat it as, you know, like, you know, your biceps or your triceps. It's way more important.
100%. So this is what I was looking at. So the recommended body fat for women, which I knew is 10% to like 30%, depending on your age. Because obviously when you're having babies and stuff, you have more body fat. Men, it's 2% to 20%.
Oof.
Yeah, I think 2% is really, they're meaning like athletic trainers, though.
That's like, I mean, 2% is
not
like
trainers, like athletic, you know.
Well, I mean, 2% is like unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't. Yeah.
That's like probably that guy you talk about a lot.
Probably.
What's his name?
Davy Goggins.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably like 8%. But
Yeah.
I mean, you only get down
I know,
to
and that's like, and that's the American Council of Exercise. So like, I
It's
feel
crazy,
like that's
yeah.
like kind of like a really
Well,
pressure number.
Well, I mean, it's like a totally different topic, but that's like the problem with like fighters and stuff like in combat sports that like cut weight for fights.
Right.
Like, it's funny. There's actually a term in fighting that's pretty relevant to this topic because they're called weight bullies.
Oh.
They're called weight bullies because walking around not fighting, their weight is actually 185, but then they cut down all the way to 145 to fight someone. And it's like, well, your normal weight walking around is 185. So you're kind of a weight bully that you go down to a different weight and you don't fight at your natural weight.
Let me ask you a question regarding that, because this is interesting. How long do they have to cut that weight?
It's usually 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like,
and it's basically what, like is it that the difference, like 140 to 180?
usually, I mean, there's a lot of guys that like, will be in, their weight class and like they won't be in, like they call it prep, like, or camp. So when you go into camp for 6 months, you're cutting weight that entire time. There's a guy who, walks around at 185 and he doesn't compete until he's in 145 weight category. But his walking around weight is as high as 200. So like that's a real weight bully, because if you try to lose that much weight, not only is it like, kind of dangerous in that short period of time, but also like, it's not really fair to the people that are, 5'3", actually weigh 145 pounds. And they're fighting somebody that's normal weight is 185, 200. It's weird because why don't you just fight at your weight class? Like, why don't you just fight at 185 then? It's
that's
like,
true. Yeah,
it's kind of weird because, and you always see the videos too of like them, wearing the garbage bags and on the spin bike. And it's like they're trying so hard to cut that last little bit of fat. But it's just like related to this topic as well because, it doesn't mean that you have to build an excessive amount of muscle, because even if you have a small amount of muscle, the more fat that you cut off, the more your muscle will appear.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is what you want to do, like what you were just saying, because I know women especially are so afraid. Like I'll always say, like, what kind of look do you want? When they come in my office, and they always want that lean look. And I'm always like, okay, but there's two different things. There's lean, lean fat, like I call it skinny fat, or there's lean with muscle. Yep. But in order to have that, you do have to work out.
Oh, yeah.
You have to work out.
No, yeah.
You have to have that type of regimen.
Of course. And that's like the whole question of like, it's so funny when people like think that they're doing like the right thing and they actually don't know what they're doing. Like people always say like, well, I'm in a calorie deficit right now. And I'm like, okay, when's the last time that you ate? They're like, no, but I'm fasting. I'm like, that's not the same thing. Like just because you're in a calorie deficit doesn't mean that you don't eat at all. It just means that you're shortening the amount of calories that you intake per day.
Right.
So whether or not you were used to eating, say 4,000 calories a day, it doesn't mean that you fast the entire day, because that's just called a fast.
Right.
Being in a calorie deficit is giving your body less calories than it's normal having and cutting it, say, in half. So you're still having the same amount of meals per day, you're just shortening and making the meal smaller. So you're cutting the calories and you're in a caloric deficit. So a lot of misconceptions around getting very lean is the overall lack of knowledge of one of the main culprits behind this is, a lot of people in the world are overweight, but so many of them are quote unquote regular gym goers, but it's weird because when you see that, it's, how many people actually look like they lift weights. And then when you talk to them, they're like, oh, I go to the gym every day. And it's like, are you sure? Like,
but that's because they didn't change their eating.
Yeah.
Or they're just
from
eating
somebody
more.
that looks like they lift,
right.
Like meaning that they are lean enough that you can adequately see muscular separation, striations, as well as, like, better than anybody, like when I'm overeating and then when I do a little bit of cardio, my muscle pops way more.
Right.
Because I'm finally shredding that little bit of fat.
Well, that's exactly, and I was going to bring that up before when I said the skinny fat.
Yeah.
The other thing women are so afraid of is they think they're going to have like that thick mass look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's only going to happen if you're just building muscle under the fat.
Yeah.
A lot of people that do come into me, they do go to the gym and stuff, but unfortunately they're not eating for weight loss. So when you go to the gym and you have this mindset, like I worked out today, so I can eat more, or I'm hungry because I worked out today. I get that all the time, text messages. I was ravenous. I worked out today. So, you overate and you really took all your benefits away. Yes, you still have the muscle, but you have layers of fat over the muscle and you're never going to see that muscle. And that's what's giving you that mass look. So you really want to make sure if you're going to the gym and you're working out and you're putting all that effort in to lifting those weights, that you're eating for weight loss. So this way you don't have that layer of fat over your muscle. Because you'll never see those beautiful muscles that you're working so hard for when you have a layer of fat over them.
Yeah.
You know?
And I always used to worry about that too, because I was like the main culprit of that, just because growing up, like being so ignorant about weightlifting, like all these videos that you watch are all of these bodybuilders that are shoving their face with 20,000 calories a day. And it's like, okay, I just need to eat more in order to get big. But then I get fluffy and I'm like, why aren't I having all these muscles like them? And then I would talk to you and you would tell me, no, it's because, are you doing your cardio? Are you doing portion sizes right? And also, is the portion of protein correct to the portion of carbs that you should be having? And I'm like, well, maybe not, because I had like 4 wraps, and in them was, you know, mostly potatoes and then chicken.
Or rice.
So really, it's a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. So I'm doing it the wrong way. But it all boils down to overall caloric intake per day.
Yeah. And the combinations, like you said.
Yeah, AKA, you know, portion size, AKA ratio of protein to carbs.
And that's huge. I love that you brought that up, because that's the biggest thing when people go in our store, or so many of our customers or clients, they're like, how am I eating, you know, pasta and losing weight? How am I eating rice and losing weight? And or the protein muffins. And it's because it's portioned correctly. You have your carbs, your healthy carbs, you have your healthy fats, you have your protein, and you have, you know, fiber. And just having that combination, it's never about, like, you should never take something out of your diet other than, you know, obviously a candy bar, to lose weight. That's really my point. Like, you should have that balance, and your meals should consist less portion, but of all the categories. And if you do that equally, you will still be able to eat what you want. You will feel fuller. You will never walk away from one of our meals feeling like I'm stuffed. But you will, other than, you know, we do have clients who have lost so much weight and they can't eat a whole meal now. But you'll never feel like you're starving either. You know, you will feel good, and that's really the whole point of having that balance, but also having all the food groups in it. It's very important. You know,
and then even like what you talk about all the time, like, you also need to take into consideration, like, you know, everything about yourself. You know, if you're a 17-year-old boy and you are, you know, still growing, you are, of course, going to go to the gym once and see muscles.
Right, exactly.
Rather than if you're a, you know, 43-year-old woman and you just had, you know, your 3rd child, and, you know, you're still recovering from that, and, you know, your beginning stages of menopause or whatever.
Right.
You know, it's important to realize it's not just about changing and then seeing immediate results. You need to take into consideration your body composition, your hormonal profile, your activity level, age, and then other factors that, you know, would attribute to losing fat, like health, you know, background of health. But in order to lose fat, you need to eat less, period. You know, that's just how it is, period. Take in less energy.
It's always about the food.
And it's always about the amount that your body expends each day, too. Because if you take in, you know, a correct amount of meals, but you're sitting all day, you're probably not going to, you know.
1,000%.
So, you know, the portion control is very important. But, you know, if I had 3 meals, 1 snack, and I was laying in bed all day, I would not, probably would not see changes that I want.
You would not. And that is so true. That actually sounds exactly like what I tell people. Because, like, listen, if you have a job where you're behind a desk, you better at the end of the day go do some type of cardio. Yeah. Because your body it's like a slow death.
You
It's
better
doing
park in
nothing.
the furthest parking spot away from work.
Yes,
Because
it's true.
It's like,
take the stairs. Don't take the elevator. You know, I tell clients all the time, you have to listen. Cardio is really to get the fat off, and the weights are to build the muscle. And when you do both, and it doesn't have to be on the same day, you could do one day. I totally believe that if you spend like an hour one day on cardio, the next day an hour on weights, you're going to get a lot better result, because you're really, instead of like splitting, like they have these, you know, where they go to like these classes and they'll do like, you know, I don't know, the HIIT class or whatever, and it's like, the whole class is 50 minutes or 60 minutes, but it's like at the end of it, you did 20 minutes of cardio, 20 minutes of weight, 20 minutes of recuperating, you know, recovery. So what are you really getting out of that? Where you're better off going 1 hour of cardio on one day, put all that energy into that cardio. The next day, put all that energy into that 1 hour weights. You're going to get such a better result out of that than splitting it up.
No, absolutely. And like you said too, like we were touched on before, like, if you have your 3 meals, 1 snack, but you're not doing any form of cardio or, exercising the most important muscle, which is your heart, that's like why you don't even have to be in a crazy calorie deficit. It's really just about your body is burning more calories than it's taking in. You need to always think about that because, of course, if you're eating like 6 meals a day, but you're not walking at all, you're going to gain weight,
right?
Period. But like, you always need to take into consideration, like, okay, I need to make my main goal of losing weight. I need to burn more calories than I ingest in a day. And it's not hard to burn a lot of calories.
Well, it depends on your age and stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But like, like consequently, like you said, it will turn into stored energy, which then, of course, produces more fat.
And I do also believe, like, like sometimes people, what they do is they'll have, like, this is like a famous dad thing.
My dad.
He won't eat all day.
Uh-huh.
And then he'll come home and he can't stop eating.
Yep.
And he's like, but I didn't eat all day. I'm like, yeah, but you just ate like, 5 meals and like, in such a short amount of time. Even if it was 3 meals in such a short amount of time, what happens is you're not even giving your body a chance to burn anything, And you have to remember, like, you're almost better off either, always taking in less, like you said. Take in less than what your body needs. I'm famous for saying that. That is the key to weight loss. The way to do that is to have your portions, make sure you have your balanced meals, and make sure they're portioned, and then you throw in your exercise, your cardio, your weights. If you can do all that, and it sounds like so much, right? Oh my gosh, but it is. It's a job. And every single person that comes to my office, I say, this is going to be like a second job. If you do not treat it like a job, you will not lose weight. You will not see the body you want. If you do half of it, like we have people, clients, or even, people I know, they have no problem just being thin. Like they're like, I don't care. I never have my clothes off anyway. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But the thing is, you're going to walk around skinny fat, and that's okay if you're okay with it, but it isn't healthy. Your body should have muscle, and the older you get, the more muscle you want to try to keep, because you do lose it, especially through perimenopause, menopause, and even through as you get older as a man, you're losing muscle. If you don't keep that muscle, along with your, balance and everything else, it plays a part in everything about your body, especially your health. So take the whole scale out of it for a second and just think about your health and how important it is to have muscle on your body, to have less fat. So this way you stay healthier, you have less inflammation.
Yep. No, absolutely. And, it's like you said about before, like, like whether you incorporate weights or cardio, that doesn't have to be like a complete, like, let me schedule out a time where I can go to the gym every day. If you take the dog for a walk, if you, just go out in the morning for a walk before you get ready for work, if you park in a very far parking spot and then you walk into work every day, take the stairs instead of using the elevator or escalator or whatever. It's how
those are things that are all going to help you.
Yeah, and
sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. But like, if your schedule allows it, the best time to do your cardio, and this is fact proven, is first thing in the morning upon wake up. Because obviously anybody that's done the detox, when you wake up early in the morning, your stomach is empty. And when your stomach is empty, it's already processed everything.
So what's it going to do when you do cardio?
It's going to immediately burn fat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to immediately burn fat because your body already has its glycogen stored away. And in any energy that you would exert then, it would use that glycogen. So then it would end up burning even more fat. So if you do it right in the morning, everybody always says, well, I need to eat something before I work out. You really don't. You really don't.
You've told yourself that, and now you believe that.
Yeah, well, we talked about this when we were explaining the detox on the last episode, I think. But, like, everybody always says to me, on the detox, they're like, can I still work out? Like, am I still going to be able to work out? And I'm like, of course you will.
Yeah, and you'll have more energy.
You're just in a calorie, you're in a calorie deficit. That's it. You're just eating less than you normally do. But on top of that, too, your body will tap into stored fat to provide the energy that it needs to continue the workout.
And that's what's really creates the weight
So you
loss.
don't need your carbs. You don't need anything extra to complete a workout. It's like, there's an old thing for like bodybuilders that's called, when your body goes catabolic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I explained this one other time, but like, I don't know why God made it this way, but like when your body goes catabolic, your body actually eats muscle before fat. But when it comes to this, your body will tap into that stored fat, like we said, because it's on an empty stomach and it's going to burn that fat first and foremost.
Yeah. Unless you're 100% all muscle. And obviously you wouldn't be doing the detox if that was the case.
Which anybody that truly knows about this knows that there is like a handful of people that are even under 10%.
Yeah, in the world.
It's like, it's like, so we're all fine.
Yeah, it's not that even you're supposed to be that low. It's just a real, like everything else we talk about in life, your body, your fat and muscle should be in balance.
Yep.
And it really has to be how you want to look. But I think when it comes to health, the more muscle that you can have on your body, or even the less fat you can have on your body, is so important. You know?
No, absolutely. And it comes down to really just like the importance of having that protein in your diet. When we talk about all the macros and the categories of food that you need to include in every meal. Protein's always been very hyped up with a lot of people advocating for it because it's like, oh, well, do you want to be big? Well, no, you got to get your protein in. Like everybody, it's very important, by, a higher protein diet or intake in grams per day relative to your body weight is always best.
Yeah, because it keeps you full.
Exactly.
It's
you should have protein in every meal you have.
It helps, burn fat.
Of course. Yep. And of course, everybody responds differently too. So we need to always take that in consideration too. Like you don't give every single client the same meal plan. No. Of course, But
and like you said, it's great to have it in everything you eat, but like sometimes someone will say to me, like, just for example, I got this the other day. Now she was doing the detox. I think I told you this. She was totally fine.
Yep.
She was not hungry. She was fine. And then all of a sudden she goes to her 3 meals and 1 snack and she's starving all day. And I said, it's mental. It's like, you already know that you can eat more. So like you're taking advantage of it. So she goes, okay, well, I'm just going to have she just had lunch and she goes, and I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to have between it, I'm going to have a grilled chicken salad. And I was like, that's another meal. Can't do that. I go, that's a meal. That's going to be a 4th meal today.
Yep.
And she was like, I go, just have lettuce, some lettuce, tomato, chopped up vegetables if you need something. And she was like, oh, I thought I should have protein in every meal. And I'm like, well, no. First of all, you don't want this to be a meal. You're just using this to get to dinner. Second of all, it's really the protein that you're having in the day. It doesn't always have to be in every single meal, know, but it really is about your day. And I say that the same thing with the food. That's why, which I love to make this point. People always say, is it okay that I eat at night? And I'm like, it's fine that you eat at night as long as you didn't eat all your meals and snacks during the day and it's not extra. If it's extra, then it's no good. But if you save a meal or if you save a snack for night, you're fine. It's not going to matter that you're sleeping after or that, you're going to bed after. None of that matters. It's really what you take in during the day.
Yep.
And I think that goes the same with the protein.
Yeah. I mean, moral of the story is if your pants feel loose around your waist and your T-shirt feels tight around your arms, you're probably losing fat and building muscle. So,
that's great.
But
yeah, I do think it's really important to just know that, put your time in, put your work in, portion sizes, get your cardio in, get your weights in, and don't look at this as, yes, it definitely is another job, but it's your life, it's your health, and really, what better job is there than to take care of that, right?
Totally agree.
All right, well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed our show.
Thank you guys for again for tuning in, and please remember to always stop in at Innovation 8025 Jericho Turnpike, Woodbury, New York, or visit our website innovationhealthymarket.com or call 516-802-5055. We're open 7 days a week. We're always there to help you out with your shopping, orders, or weight loss needs. When you come in, ask for me, Jake. I'll be happy to show you around the store. Or if you're looking for a one-on-one plan, I can make your first free consultation appointment with Josephine.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.